favorite mechanics in TTRPGs, D&D?
Mine was Joe from that garage on the corner of First Street and Elm.
Yeah, he was good. Anything rogue. Anything rogue.
Because the rules don't apply.
They don't apply. No, I loved, weirdly enough, I loved 5 Footsteps. And I found it very hard. I really found it hard to get past when we moved to 5 point, and like it was gone. We said it for the first several years we were playing, 5e was, okay, I'm going to take 5 foot steps, and the GM be like, there's no such thing as a 5 foot step.
It was cool. You'd go up, you'd whack somebody, and then you'd 5 foot step out of combat.
I loved it. I loved 5 foot steps.
So that for him to get to you, he gave somebody else an opportunity attack?
I loved it.
Was there opportunity attacks in 3.5?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, you could move yourself out of the way for the archer, or because I could get flanking and then take a 5 foot step, and the archer would still have their line of sight. I loved 5 foot steps, and I miss 5 foot steps.
They were good. You just mentioned one of my favorites, flanking.
I do.
Because the way we can get tactical in battles when you're working well together.
Yep. And even though in 5.0 now you just get advantage, sometimes when me and you get flanking as characters, one of us will still go 2 for flanking. Let's 2 for flanking. It's like it's a trademark.
Yeah.
As much as I complained, like in my inner monologue in our videos at the time, the card system for initiative on Savage Worlds is really, really cool once you actually get in playing it. And I'm sure, like, once you get quick enough with all the shuffling, because that's going to be a major problem for me, I'm going to have to go practice or buy, like, a shuffler. But
dude, buy a shuffler, because then
you
it
can
would
use
be
it
quick and easy, and it'd look cool.
It would look cool. It'd be loud.
We could get a shuffler cam.
Shuffler cam.
For the stream? That would be bad. Come on.
That would be pretty fucking cool.
Shuffler cam.
But I like the way that initiative in D&D, if you have one bad roll, it doesn't matter how high your initiative is, how good it is, how fast you are. You're stuck at the back of the line the entire time. It never comes into play again. With Savage Worlds, you could potentially play a fast character that moves up at the top of the heap pretty often with redrawing cards and that sort of thing. But you also do have that chance on a turn to be back, but it's only going to be one turn.
Yeah.
So it was a little clunky at first, just getting used to dealing with cards, right? It's not that the mechanic is clunky. It was
the number and then the suits.
And it was so different than anything we did. But I'm with you. The more we did it, the more I liked it. You're the speedster, but this time you drew a 2, and the bad guy is going first this round. Which, because in D&D, right, it's that first round really sucks if you're the last guy. Yeah. But after that, I mean, you're technically the last guy, but everybody is waiting a full round of people before they get to move again. So it's really only detrimental on that first round. And then after that, it's everybody waits for 8 other people to go before they get to go. So it's kind of fair in that regard, but it gets so
tedious,
boring. But the strategy changes you have to do on the fly because of the jumbling of the initiative order with Savage World. It's like
every turn you have to think.
Right. It was cool as hell.
I dislike that.
Okay, well, that's all the time that Emily's got for us today. She's got some real world obligations she needs to step away for.
I just want to be a rogue and do roguey things.
Yeah.
And
I really like getting into the battle economy and knowing, as I see other people move, being able to plan how I can best either facilitate them or set them up for something, and watching somebody just walk right into that thing that I've just set up for them and just seeing them really do something cool because I put them in a position to do something cool. I love that. With the cards, it felt hard for me as the way I play to make that kind of tactical choices.
So I'm just going to real quick, because if anybody's watching and hasn't played Savage Worlds, when you get into combat, a card is drawn for everybody, and the higher cards go first, lower cards go last, and we redraw at every turn, every round in combat. So in case you're wondering, what are they talking about cards? It's like rolling for initiative, but you use a card just to figure out what number you got, and you change every time.
Round. Yeah, I think just for my play style, the cards don't really do it for me.
So I think you could get your play style in there. It's just, to John's point, you got to think a little harder, right? And say, okay, things just changed. Now, how do I manipulate the situation? But it is much easier in D&D, and that's why we'll always love D&D and always go back and play.
But I also really pride myself on trying to have a quick turn. Like, I try not to drag down the turn order by waffling back and forth, but I could do that or I could do this, and having to think through what I really like for when you get to my turn and be like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this. Just trying to be courteous to the other players. And when I come up and I'm unprepared, then I'm like, oh man, I'm wasting everybody's time. Like,
I'm with you. I like to know what I'm going to do when my turn gets there, which also makes it really irritating when other people don't. You know, because in D&D, I have to wait for 7 or 8 other people to go before I get to go, and 3 of them are, I just don't know how I want this spell or not, or, you know, trying to figure out.
Should I heal somebody? Like, it just turns into a whole thing.
I also like in Savage Worlds the skills being linked to a particular dice, but that does sort of bring a side problem of you may have to spend a little time looking for dice, which I generally do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you said,
why do those 8s and 10s look so much alike in the dice tray?
Exactly the same. Yeah, I get that, but I do like that they're with a certain die, because then, like, when you go up in level, quote unquote, with it, you automatically are, you know, increasing your chances of getting a considerably better roll. Your average roll is going to be higher.
So, you know, for folks not familiar with Savage Worlds, just real quick, most things that you would try to apply a skill to has a difficulty level of 4. You might have a die size of 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12 assigned to your skill. So the higher your die, the more likely it is you're going to beat that 4.
Right.
Now, that number 4 changes in combat because then it's based on what kind of defensive capability the other side's got. But again, the higher your die size, the better. So I like it. I think it's really cool. Want to play more Savage World stuff like Titan Effect to really explore that.
The one problem I really have with it is as you move up in skill, the chance of exploding with your main die goes down.
That's true.
They do have the wild die to sort of help, but if you got a D12, that's a 1/12 chance. If you got a D4, that's a 1/4 chance.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a good point, but you always have the 1/6 chance.
But you always have the
your
1/6 chance.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that before.
Either.
I think one of my favorite mechanics that is specific to a game, but I think could be teleported to other games as well, is the luck roll. And probably along the same lines as the sanity roll. I think if you're playing horror-themed D&D adventures or Savage World adventures, that you could get. Savage Worlds has got some of that mechanics built into it, like a fear mechanic and a stress mechanic in some of the different companions or setting books. So not so much there, but luck. Just you need something to happen and, you know, make a luck roll. Now, Call of Cthulhu, you have a number associated with it. I've seen some people put it into their non-Cthulhu games like D&D with just a 50% chance, flat 50. I think if I was a game master, I would adjust that depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Like, this is a really crazy situation. I'm only going to give you a 25% chance that there's a stake in the bush. So
I kind of like being able to spend it too, and spending it could have consequences later on down the line.
I do think it's a good way to let your players have some authority in the way that the storyline is taking. Like, you didn't specifically say that there's another dwarf in this bar, but by chance could there be? Okay, well, roll a luck to see if there's another dwarf, because I need another dwarf to do this thing. Like, it allows them a little agency in kind of forming the storyline. I really like that part of Call of Cthulhu and Savage Worlds where I can actively impact the story.
I think one thing I've come to understand or think about that is when the luck mechanic is there, it's real easy to just say, okay, make a luck roll. Yeah. Even in situations where I probably ought to just say, sure, there's a dwarf in the bar.
Or no, there's
because
no
if I
bush
make
in the
you a
stake.
luck roll and you fail it, then the dwarf's not in the bar. And would it have made the story better for the dwarf to be there? Would it have hurt the story for the dwarf to be there or not be there? So
I think one thing,
being judicious with the make a luck roll was probably, not that I've been burned with that before. Or anything.
Not at all, not with bush stakes or anything.
I think one thing you have to consider in that sort of thing that I've seen a lot of Call of Cthulhu groups enact is when somebody fails a roll, they don't fail in what they want to do necessarily. They may just not do it as good as they wanted to. Like in your luck example with the dwarf, maybe they see a dwarf, but they lock eyes with him a little bit too long, and
bar fight.
He's immensely angry and whatever they wanted to talk to him about.
My brain went a totally different direction with that. I thought they were going into a bromance.
I mean,
you gently caress.
That wouldn't be a fail for a lot of people from what I'm noticing on TTRPG Twitter. We are the only group apparently that isn't banging in every session.
Well, because he gets uncomfortable.
Right, on your list, write down romance and TTRPG for future conversations. But it is difficult in a group that is family based. I have a hard time role playing an NPC flirting with my daughter.
I did think about that day when we were trying to think of topics. One of my things I thought of was flirting, in games, but it was good, specifically flirting with your family, Look,
I mean, I can get into character, but there's always that point. It's
where you get the skeevy look on your face. You're like, no.
So there's a lot of brother-sister actors out there.
Okay. Any more favorite mechanics?
No,
I don't know that I want to hear the end of that.
I'm just saying, have you ever seen them do movies together where they're love interests? It's just too weird.
It's
too weird. We're role-playing. But
okay, that didn't go as badly as I thought it would go.
Well, I'm a plugger, so you're right to be concerned.
But weirdly enough, you being in a campaign, I almost never want my character to have a romantic interest with you, because it's I do that in real life. I don't want to do that in the fantasy.
And that's fair. I don't take offense to it or anything.
Because it feels we're married in real life, got to be married in the game. I don't want that. That seems so lit.
Usually your characters hate mine.
That's
with
true.
A passion, because my characters are weird and...
We'll explore that some other time as well.
Marital therapy for Emily and John, part 2.
Every character I play is some tiny little aspect of me.
But amplified. So him as a whole I can take. It's when he takes this one facet and he's I'm going to pump it up to 12, and then I've got to deal with that. And I'm I don't really like that.
Hercules says, I've had issues with the male player and a couple being upset with the female partner having an NPC love interest in the game. And I'm it's fantasy. You can kiss when you get home, I promise. That is very true. She is my real life wife. If she does not want to be my D&D or Call of Cthulhu or whatever wife, that's fine. That doesn't say anything.
No, and if he wants to hit up NPCs, and that's fine. You want to flirt with my dad? Flirt with my dad. I don't care.
I care.
Do it. I want you to.
We have on many occasions, and it's not awkward for you. It's more funny between the two of us.
But I can understand
to see who laughs first.
I can understand that if in their marriage that's uncomfortable, but that's a personal conversation that should not be brought to the D&D table. Deal with that at home. Talk to your wife.
Yeah, definitely.
We understand each other enough that I know I don't have to be.
So even love interests aside, there are times when out of game relationships affect or are affected by in-game stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
You've seen us argue, and then it comes home, and we're still kind of pissy about it.
Right. Even if it's got nothing to do with romance or whatever. Right. Back in the 80s and 90s, mostly the 80s, your mother and I were playing in this long-standing game, and there were times I come on, well, why did you do that?
So fucking stupid.
And nothing to, that when you were there, you took away my shot I could have hit that guy with an arrow, probably taken him down, but you moved in the way, or complaining about how one of the other of us dealt with the NPC. So it's just
we generally keep it pretty low key. Like as soon as we get home, like I might be like, that's kind of shitty, and then he'll be like, yeah, I'm like, but it's okay, I still love you. Like we move on, but like
some people can't.
Some people can't, but that's a take that away from the table.
No, just kick those players out. You don't want them.
Check out the chat now.
Oh, wow.
Did you roll good? I want to know now.
Yeah, I want to see the drawing.
We had to tell the dolphin story. You got to tell us about the drawing, bruh. This is a two-way street. No, yeah, that's a tough road to travel.
I mean, if you as a DM are coming out and intentionally flirting with somebody you know to be in a relationship,
it's a little skeevy.
It could be a little skeevy. I would recommend in session 0 or something having that mapped out. Having hey, I know you all are a couple. If an NPC wants to romance one of you, are you going to have a problem with that? No, I didn't. It was a stick figure.
Stick figure,
but
sexy.
It's a little different.
I like 'em lanky.
Like, if you get mad at your wife for flirting with somebody in a TTRPG or a video game, not like an MMO. Like, if people are sexing in an MMO, that's way different. But
yeah, we're talking about like
Elder
flirting
Scrolls
with your steward in Elder Scrolls. Yeah,
like if you get married in Elder Scrolls and that becomes a problem for our marriage. Like, that says more about me than about you.
But, like, Sarah and Cody, my sister and brother-in-law, like, they aren't, like, fully together in the game, but there's some romance between the two. Like, he goes to her aid and all that stuff. But I think that they like that for their marriage. They like having that little experience of, like, chivalry and stuff like that. That's good for them. We just personally don't need that. I'm like, stay the fuck away from my character.
I mean, I wouldn't turn it down.
No, I know.
Take your dolphin jumping out.
Take your dolphin out and go away. But like
that's another thing. I would be worried if you wanted to fuck me in animal form.
That would be weird. Little kinky.
It's fantasy.
It's fantasy. No judgments.
How do you feel about octopuses? Giant octopuses.
I've seen some videos.
Do we have another topic?
Yeah.
We've gotten to a realm I'm uncomfortable with now, which is strange. But
strange. No, yeah.